Welcome to my prison deck profile. This video will mainly be a deck profile, but I also want to cover the events I participated in, which were BCS Anaheim and Worlds, and I took the deck to both events. I mainly want to cover my rounds, the deck itself, but also make this video as a record of my competitive journey since 2022 was my first ever competitive year. I started Vanguard with set 2 of Overdress. I've been playing Prison for the whole duration. So I did want to. I was very tight to the deck. I wanted to take it to all the events of my first competitive year. I did take it to BSF, and I did have a deck profile video on that where I personally went X2 and my team went X3. Then I went to BCS Anaheim, and I did top there with the same, not the same list, but the same deck, same concept, sort of. Took Prison again, and then I did participate Worlds in my first competitive year, so I was pretty happy about that. I think I'm pretty satisfied. I wish I participated in Bro as well, but I didn't do that. But I'll go over the deck profile first. So I was playing Prison, and I was using the standard right lane. And then I ran 4 of the Pure Lights. I think this is the optimal number. You don't really run less. It's your win con most of the time. Pure Light does have the upper hand, and being one of the few decks that has 2 win cons, the deck out or just normal damage situation. And she's really good as the game goes on if you're able to hold on to her and rewrite her as many times as possible. So we run 4 of her. I do run the 1 extra Persona Ride for the few times where you don't see your grade 4, and also if you have extra counterblast and you need a rear guard and they have rear guards, this comes up a few times. Otherwise, she'll mostly be a discard card if you have your grade 4 early. Then there's the 4 Rouge. If you feel 4 Rouge is correct, you mainly want to run cards that in Prison, and she's one that does that. She also makes your deck tankier. Of course, opponents can play around it. So she can also serve as a secondary discard fodder card if you don't think she'll be live, but after turn 4 she is usually live. But early on you can use her as a discard card. Then we have the 4 Perio, which I think was very important, especially in the current meta with Youthberg. This card is really helpful against Youthberg. It helps you grind against them. It makes their turns weaker, and if they don't Persona Ride, their numbers are way too small, and you can pretty much grind against them and then deck them out. So this card slows down a lot of decks where you feel that they may be too strong too quickly. And so I felt that she was very alive turns 1 through 4. As the game goes on, she's either very impactful or just irrelevant, but her 15k base can help you hit numbers later if you feel you need the extra 5 to push. Then we have 4 Macarite, which is one of the key cards in decking your opponent out. The tricky part about Macarite is if you're playing the grind game, you usually have Shovel Stud as an option, or Roosh herself as well. There's a lot of cards that come up where you may need a Soul Blast, so you have to be very careful of managing your resources and choosing whether to Shovel Stud for a card for yourself or accelerating the grind game with Macarite. But I feel the next card, Cuff Spring, helps you with that. She's no cost, she's on place. And if you feel that Macarite might be too costly, you might need more shield or hand, and you need to prioritize Shovel Stud, then Cuff Spring is there to make up for that. If you need to ditch Macarite or not use her effect, you can still go for the grind game with Cuff Spring. Her numbers are bad though, so there is that trade-off. Then I'm playing the 4 Shovel Stud. This is the only grade 1 in the deck, and I think it's the only one you really need. There are situations where you don't see a grade 1 in opening hand to rest for your Prison. That's only a problem if you're going second, but I feel just resting your Vanguard if you're going second, you don't have Shovel Stud is pretty effective. There's no reason to force a unit to be rested on your turn one for the prison. You can pretty much just rest your Vanguard and not waste your resources in hand. There's also the fact that a lot of decks can use the CB early. One of the examples that I faced was Overlord. So if you can deny them their bar or whatever red land they're using by resting your Vanguard and not wasting your hand, it lets you guard more effectively as the game goes. Then of course there's the 4 PGs. We don't get Elementaria because we are a grade 4 deck, so no reason to brick there. The 1 prison. Then the trigger lineup was 7 crit. And I value the 5k base units more than the soul. I don't think soul is ever a problem in this deck, especially if you're managing your resources effectively. Prison isn't a tanky deck, so you rarely call triggers down, and if you do, it's better to have a good number than this 4k base with the effect that may or may not help you. Usually it won't. So 7 crit felt right because you need the next trigger, which is 4 draws. You need to see your pieces. You are not tanky, so taking damage early, you do want to see more draws than anything else, so you can get either your pieces or draw into more shield or just PGs just to keep you alive. It helps you also be more aggressive if you need to be. It's just very versatile and important, I feel. And there's the 4 draws and your win card, OT, which are the most important cards, keeping you alive, doing the miracle plays, and then obviously flip this and winning if it's later in the game. So that was pretty much the deck. It's the one different fight uses, but he also said he got it from, I believe his name was Uzmed-chan, who I follow on Twitter, and I actually asked him for advice for Worlds, and he gave me some very helpful advice, things that I was already trying to practice in locals. So this is the deck profile part. I feel like that is the most standard and optimal deck list you can have for the prison, especially since we haven't gotten any support. There's not much you can really do. You could run Gleamers to make it a more aggressive version, which is what I had in BSF, but I feel this version of the deck gives you 2 win cons, and you can do them both consistently, and most of your whole deck's pretty much 4-ofs, so you're gonna see very consistent turns every single game. There are some times where you will brick, which is unfortunate, but that's just the nature of the deck with prison itself, the card, the order. So yeah, let's talk about BCS first, which was my first ever solo event. I played against, in my round 1, I played against Bastion, who was a new player, and so I was able to win that one. Round 2, I played against Flagberg. I believe it was Flagberg, and I went first, and they didn't see their persona red on turn 2, which made it pretty easy, because I feel like Flagberg really relies on the persona red. They really need that to get the whole deck going. And I felt that that matchup is one of the few matchups where you can actually damage deny them. So as long as you're making sure their resources are managed and they can't just pop off, Prison can really grind against them and also just, I feel like, outpace them, because their numbers aren't that big, as long as they don't see the persona, of course. So then I played Eva in round 3. This was my first matchup against Eva since the promo released, outside of practice and locals. And it felt that they were very susceptible to rush, so I went with a rush strat for the Eva matchup. And I felt that it worked mainly because they were prioritizing getting the orders into their hand, which meant they had no shield. They want their orders and their persona rad for the most optimal turn, so rushing them worked. And then round 4, I played against Bav Sagara. Now, Bav Sagara, I think, is one of the better matchups because Sure, you can't damage deny them, but they're also a 3 attack deck. I feel like Prism does really well into most 3 attack decks. It's very easy to block. You're not a tanky deck, so you you have to be able to conserve shield, but against 3 attack decks, it feels like it's easier to do that. You just PG the Van against Balsagra, and then you out tempo them. And then round 5, I played the mirror match, which was interesting. I think the lists were a bit different. They were running effect heals for the event, but those effect heals I feel costed them a lot of key moments in this match because they didn't have enough shield. So then, I ran Perio, and I don't think they prioritized Perio as much in the way they played. So when they were unimprisoning things or imprisoning mine, they didn't have the Perio there to make me lose 5 on my units while I did, and I feel that made a slight difference in the matchup. And after that, I played another Eva, which was round 6. And this one, I was able to do the same strat that I did in round 3. I pretty much just rushed them. They couldn't block everything, and I won by turn 4. And I feel like for the Eva matchup, it's either you 0-6 them or you win by turn 3 before they can Persona, right? And after that, I played Zorga. Now, this one was one of the hardest matchups. Not so much because Zorga itself is strong. I feel like Prism does fine into Zorga. It's a 3 attack deck, so it's another deck where you're able to guard more comfortably. But in this specific round, round 7, I opened the prison, and I believe I either soul charged or I opened OT. And this was after redrawing 5 to try to get to my Seraph. So I redrew. I didn't see my grade 4. I redrew 5. I opened the prison. I opened the OT. And then for the rest of the game, I didn't see my grade 4 until, if I did, it was until turn 6, I want to say, or more later on. But I was able to win. I just did the grind game. Denied them as much resources as I could, and then they hit OT offensively, which decked them out. And then round 8, I played Zorga, which was had a very similar list to the prior one, but it was slight different. I think there was a 1 or 2 card difference. And then this one, I think I opened well this time around, and then I just rushed them. We just went back and forth, traded, and my triggers came up more, so I was able to win this one. Then last round, round 9, the opposite happened. It was against Kyrie. We both played, attacked, go back and forth. Their checks were better than mine, and they won it, and that was a very fast round. So those were my 9 rounds in Swiss. I just dropped the last one, and for my first solo event, that was very interesting. I was very curious, or I was worried that if I lost one earlier, how that would impact my gameplay or my mental state. But luckily, I only lost the last one of Swiss. So by that point, I was guaranteed to go into Top Cut. And I did go into Top Cut of BCS Anaheim. The top 8, I played against a Gravidia player. And I don't think they've ever had someone damage deny them by giving them 0 counterblast. I played against him, and I never attacked his Vanguard. I just imprisoned things. He would call them out, or he would call rear guards. And I would just always swing rear. I think his greatest mistake was calling rear guards from hand, because he already had the ones in prison to work with. And he also Persona Road every turn, and he soul charged as often as he could, which only accelerated my game plan. I feel he believed needed all the hand because I think he thought I was going to try to go aggressive at one point, but I never had the plan to go aggressive. It was only until I saw like 5 or 4 cards left in deck that I started swinging because my units had a crit because there was 10 in prison. So a hit would be lethal pretty much. So yeah, I was just able to grind him out, deck him out. I never hit his Vanguard, and I won basically. And then what was top 4 semifinals? I played against the Kyrie player again, and he OT'd me on turn 3, I believe. I don't remember who went first. I think he went first or I went first. I got a bad hand. I do remember getting a bad hand, but I just got OT'd, and I felt like that was the deciding factor in that. His numbers were big on his turn 4, and I think he had a turn 5 as well, or he probably won before that. I don't remember, but I do remember getting OT'd. Then for my third place match, I replayed the Zorga from round 7, and the same thing happened. I redrew 5 to try to get my Pure Light. I open Prison, I open OT. I don't see a grade 4 in my hand. We play the game. I'm not seeing my grade 4 on my turn 4. He's doing the best to take me down, but since I don't have my main pieces, that pretty much means I have shield or ways to defend myself. So then we just do. I'm not even trying to deck him out. I'm still hitting his face or his Vanguard, and he's still taking damage. I am not. I only swing with Vanguard, I guess, so I am technically damage denying him, but not swinging with my rears and just passing after I don't get like triple or double crit. And so the same sequence of events pretty much happens. It was like 1-to-1 to what happened in round 7. We go back and forth. He's down to his last few cards. He attacks my Vanguard. He flips the OT, and he decks himself out. And that's pretty much how I got third place at BCS. I was very happy with the way I played, because from BSF I was just pretty much a rush aggro prison player, and then by the BCS I felt like the complete prison player. I was able to grind, damage deny, resource starve, just play both styles, defensive and offensive, and I felt like all my fundamentals were in place. The deck building was correct. Shout out to Uzumi-chan and Different Fight for all the help there. I would just watch Different Fights list. I try to listen to his thoughts. I feel like Vanguard players prefer to grind games to learn, but I feel like it's important to think about and learn and understand fundamentals. I feel like that's some of the most important factors in helping you grow as a player. And then for Worlds, I ran the list back again. They gave us this cool promo. There was that. And Worlds, I expected it to be a lot harder. And granted, I didn't do well. I pretty much lost all my matchups and then dropped. I went like X3 after round 4. And the first matchup I went up against was the EVA player who won BCS Anaheim, so the one we knew what we were playing. So there was no point in pretty much hiding my list or like being secretive about it with other players, because I go up to the pairings round 1 in Worlds. I see my name, I see the opponent's name, I'm like, wait, I know this person. Then we sit down, he's like, oh, what's up? You're still playing? Or this matchup should be interesting. My EVA into your prison. I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, we both know what we're playing, so there's no secret here. And for this event, Worlds, I felt like I played my deck perfectly. And I knew going into this event that playing my deck perfectly would mean that it would all come down to who drive checks better. And at the event, that is pretty much what happened. I got OT'd on round 1. It was late, so it was a guaranteed KO. I tried to grind them, got them down to the last 7 cards of their deck. Tried to live their turn, but I knew they flipped OT, I lost, and they did. Round 2, I played against Youthberg. Youthberg attacked me. I think he was going second. He attacked turn 1. I guard with one of my few shield cards and say OT to pass, and they flipped OT to pass, and that pretty much put me at a hand disadvantage. So I knew going forward it would be very hard to grind, because there would be a lack of shield value, and they would have just a bigger hand than me for the rest of the game. So I went very aggressive, got into 5 damage on my turn 3. Turn 4, they were able to block everything, and my drive check was very dry. I I want to say 2 grade 2s and a shovel set, which that was pretty much my drive check for the whole day on most of my triple drives. So yeah, round 2 I lost to Youthberg. They OT'd. Round 3 I got my bye, so my only win at Worlds was technically a bye, which was very frustrating. Then round 3 I played Overlord. I went for the deck out Graham, got them down to their last few cards, and then I decked out because I was hitting every draw trigger, which decked me out, and they managed to have PG for all my lethal attacks. So that was my Worlds run, which was felt very frustrated, but I knew that Youthberg was gonna win the event. So I had the choice to take Youthberg. I could have. I thought about it, but I felt that if I played perfectly on any deck, if I played perfectly on Prison, it's whoever drive checks better. If I played perfectly on Youthberg, it would have been a lot of mirror matches, so then it would have been whoever played perfectly. Or it would have been whoever drive checked better. So in both scenarios, it would have been just, if I play perfect, whoever drive checks better is going to win. So it doesn't really matter what I'm playing, was my thought process. But I think if I had played Youth, I would have done better, mainly because it would have made up for all the bad luck I was getting, essentially. Because I feel like Youthberg doesn't rely on flipping the OT to win. It's just very consistent and does the same thing every game, and it doesn't brick as hard as most decks. As long as you see your Witch or Sequana, I believe, you're good to go. So that was my Worlds experience. That was my competitive experience for 2022. I am glad I did take Prison for every event that I did participate in. I didn't want to win Worlds with this deck. I just wanted to play the deck for my whole first competitive season. And I think after this event, after Worlds, I will be resting it because Prison hasn't changed since set 4. They released 2 cards in set 6. A Restander that's very bad, and a card that makes it so your opponent can't call things out of Prison, but if that unit dies, they pretty much get Big Hand or a multi-attack. And so that card's bad. And then we haven't gotten anything. I don't think we're getting anything in set 9, so we're either waiting for set 10 or 11. So I'd rather play Jet or Youth in that time. As for Worlds, I think Worlds was fun. I didn't play a lot, but I think the event itself was fun. There was lots of side events, lots of players there. There's lots of vendors, so shout out to my locals, TDK, who were vendors. If you're in Riverside, you should definitely come check out Top Deck Keep in Riverside. Shout out to all my teammates and every locals players. To my brother, who's my practice partner, and I think the best Vanguard player, cause, fundamentally and like just from a thinking perspective or game decision, I felt like everything I learned, or I was able to learn and accelerate my learning so much because of our back and forth. And shout out to all my teammates, and then Jack, Jacob, Ian, Joe, Anthony, Morrow, everyone on the team. And then I also wanted to give a special shout out to Sergio, who's one of our players that are locals who happened to be retiring from the game. So sad to see him go. He was one of the first players I met and helped me grow to the player I am right now. And at Worlds, I did meet Different Fight, and I got him to sign my Seraph, one of my Seraphs. So I was very happy about that. I was trying to. He was one of the reasons I really wanted to win Prison. I didn't know that Prison was going to have a hard time because of Eva and Youth. It's just a bad meta. But going forward, I think one of the things, there's a few things I learned from this competitive experience. The first thing, I don't think hiding your deck makes that much of a difference. Especially, I don't know, I felt like sitting down, I could see everyone's deck, or standing up. It's not like you can walk around a little bit before you leave, and you can see every deck. So I don't see the point in hiding your deck. I mean, you're either playing the best deck or you're playing not the best deck. And if you're not playing the best deck, then does it really matter if you're like hiding the goo, unless it's like a direct counter to the best deck? I feel. So yeah, um, I think withholding deck information isn't as important as it seemed to be online. And then secondly, I feel like you should just play what you feel is the most optimal deck. Like truly objectively, like before this event, I knew that Youthberg was gonna win the event if I didn't win the event. So I either play Youthberg or I play a different deck and try to win it with that. And I feel if I had just taken Youthberg, I could have done really well. So as much as comfort is a big asset, I feel like there's just a gap in power between a deck like Prison and Youth. So from going on, I think I feel like I would just want to play tier 0 or tier 1 decks and then make myself get comfortable on those and reach the same skill level or adeptness on the tier 0 decks as I had on my comfort decks, basically, or comfort deck because I only played one deck basically. So those were my main takeaways, and I think fundamentals are important. I think teaching and being taught are important. Being taught by someone that you feel is super knowledgeable. I don't think grinding out games is. I think it's important, but I think it's overvalued. A comparison would be like playing League of Legends. If you just spam ranked, yeah, you might climb, you might get some points or some elo, but you're more likely to learn by watching some educational content or getting a coach or just watching a better player than you. I feel like watching is more important than actually playing a lot of times when you want to improve at least. So yeah, so I feel like also teaching. There was some teammates or players or new players where I would say something and they would question why. And when you get questioned why, it helps you understand the way you see things and why you see them that way. And then as you explain it, it reinforces whether you're correct or wrong, or if your thought process is correct or wrong. So yeah, I feel like I grew a lot as a player. Hopefully 2023 season, I would like to win a BSF. I would like to top a bro. I'd like to win a BCS, and I would like to top at Worlds. So those are the goals for the year. I will be probably just playing TG0/1 decks, playing the best decks, and just playing all the fundamentals and everything I've learned in my first competitive year. So thank you so much for watching the video. That's been pretty much my deck profile and also my competitive Vanguard journey. Thank you again to all the players that I've played and have helped me become the player that I am. So thank you for watching the video.